Question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the member for McKellar.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the House for the opportunity to speak on this incredibly important bill. It has been a number of years since the Commonwealth Parliament came to a view that it was important for us to extend our purview to people who were using or plying their evil trade of abusing minors to countries outside Australia. It was an important step because they were using the reach of this parliament and parliaments in other parts of Australia to try and get outside of the net of the will of the people. As a father of a daughter, it is quite extraordinary that anyone would behave in such a manner and a form. These reforms are critical to sending a clear message to people who would use this type of activity to create a situation where they feel that they could get away with it. We have seen in other jurisdictions that minimum mandatory sentencing sends a clear signal to perpetrators of all types of crimes that it is unacceptable and that they will not be able to get through the court system or to somehow convince people that they should not be punished in a relevant and systemic fashion. When such measures have been introduced, what we have found is that people have, those crimes have reduced quite massively and quite substantially. This bill makes it quite clear that we are going to be in a position where people will not be able to go overseas, will not be able to subvert the will of this parliament and the people of Australia. This is important for many reasons. Yesterday we had World Suicide Prevention Day. It is amazing the number of people who commit suicide because of events that had occurred earlier in their lives, where they have, in some cases, they have denied that those events ever occurred, but find themselves in the situation where later in life they could simply not deal with those events. Preventing this sort of crime against children is, I think, one of the most important things that any parliament can do. As I say before, as a parent of a daughter, it is difficult to imagine a better way to harm any parent than to abuse their child, especially in the situations where there are people in placements of trust. That is, that they have been given an opportunity to look after children, and that instead of using that position as they should, to undertake care and diligence to ensure that their child is protected, instead they betray that trust that has been placed in them. We cannot, in any circumstances, Madam Deputy Speaker, underestimate the enormity of that betrayal. This parliament is right to send a most extraordinary signal. In fact, there is no signal that we could probably send that is extraordinary enough to say to people in that position that if you abuse a child for whom you are meant to be protecting, then the weight of the law will come down upon you without mercy, because you have shown the most vulnerable in our community no mercy. And we don't care where that happens. You can try and ply your evil trade in other parts of the world. The long arm of the Australian law will find you, will prosecute you, and will punish you for this crime that you have committed. Because there is nothing more serious than injuring a person for life in a manner and form that does not allow them to lead the greatest possibility of their lives. From time to time I reflect on the number of people who have later in life committed suicide, who were unable to continue a full life because of the scars, the mental distress, that they have suffered due to the abuse that they had to endure as children. How many great people have our communities lost because we are unable in that time and place to look after them in a manner and form that we should have? And that is why I believe that this particular piece of legislation will be unanimously passed by this parliament. The member for Mayo also spoke of the damaging effects of normalising aberrant behaviour that we see in child sex dolls. It is important that this parliament, as the Attorney-General has done, recognises the harm that these dolls can do, recognises that it is almost like a ramp up to committing a crime. It's important that we stop these things now before they become and they do harm and damage to others. This is not a matter of this is not a trivial matter. This is in fact quite the opposite. It is a very serious matter, and it is right that this parliament recognises that, because if we do not take the opportunity at this point in time to say very clearly to people who think that it's okay, that it's not okay, that this House, the People's House, recognises that your behaviour or the behaviour of people who think that is okay, that it is not, and that if you try to do that, the law of this land will be very clearly brought down upon your head. There are other matters that we should obviously look at very seriously as well. This bill, like all bills of this nature, must take account of circumstances as they evolve. It is important that we continue to recognise that, and that while we may believe that we are meant to do that there is no other way for people who wish to perpetrate this crime can do so, inevitably there will be people who try to find ways around this law. And in those circumstances, it is important that this parliament be very strong in the manner and form that it responds to those opportunities.
I thank the